Most men will never hear what you're about to hear, not because it's hidden, but because it's uncomfortable. What I'm about to say challenges the stories you've been sold about attraction, age, and power. And if you truly understand this, it will permanently change how you see yourself and how others respond to you. You've been told that younger women are drawn to looks, money, or smooth talk. That lie keeps men chasing the wrong things for decades. The truth is quieter, deeper, and far more unsettling. Because it means attraction has less to do with what you show and everything to do with who you become when no one is watching. Think about this for a moment. Why do some older men walk into a room and immediately command attention without trying, while others go unnoticed no matter how hard they perform? It's not luck. It's not genetics. It's not status. It's something internal, something most men never develop, and most women instinctively recognize. If you've ever felt invisible despite your effort, if you've ever watched a younger man with less depth get attention you thought you deserved, if you've ever wondered why confidence alone never seems to be enough, then you need to hear what comes next. Because the traits that truly captivate younger women aren't taught in dating advice, and they're never talked about openly. They're forged through discipline, emotional mastery, and self-respect. And once you understand them, you stop chasing attraction, and attraction starts responding to you. This isn't about becoming someone else. It's about shedding the behaviors that have been quietly working against you. By the end of this video, you'll see why age, when used correctly, is not a disadvantage, but a psychological advantage most men waste. Stay with me until the end, because once you see this clearly, you won't be able to unsee it, and neither will the people around you. Let's start with something most people never question, yet it quietly controls how they move through the world: the need to impress. From a young age, men are taught, sometimes subtly, sometimes aggressively, that their value must be demonstrated, speak louder, achieve more, prove something. And over time, this turns into a habit so deeply ingrained that many men don't even realize they're performing anymore. They walk into conversations already trying to sell a version of themselves, already negotiating for approval before anyone has asked for it. What's fascinating is that the moment you stop doing this, the dynamic changes instantly, not gradually. Instantly, because the absence of performance is rare, and rarity always draws attention. When an older man enters a room without urgency, without the restless need to be noticed, he creates a psychological pause. He's not scanning the room for validation. He's not adjusting his posture or tone to gain favor. He is simply present. That presence communicates something far more powerful than words ever could. I am comfortable with myself, even if no one else approves. For a younger woman, especially one accustomed to being pursued, analyzed, or subtly pressured, this feels unfamiliar, and that unfamiliarity sparks curiosity. There is a common misunderstanding here. People assume that not trying to impress means being indifferent or aloof. That's not what's happening at all. Self-possession is not emotional distance. It's emotional containment. It's the ability to feel interest without becoming needy, to show attention without surrendering your center. When a man listens without interrupting, when he speaks without over-explaining, when he allows silence to exist without rushing to fill it, he signals inner stability. And stability, psychologically, is reader's strength. Silence, in particular, is deeply misunderstood. Many men fear silence because they associate it with awkwardness or rejection. But silence, when paired with ease, becomes authority. It suggests that the man does not need constant stimulation to feel secure. He doesn't rush to justify himself. He doesn't overcorrect. He trusts that what he brings is enough. Younger women sense this at a visceral level. It feels grounding. It feels solid. It feels like standing on firm ground rather than shifting sand. This is where age, when integrated properly, becomes an advantage rather than a liability. An older man who has lived, failed, recalibrated, and reflected carries a quieter confidence. Not the loud kind that demands attention, but the settled kind that no longer asks for permission. He has nothing to prove because life has already tested him. And that absence of proving energy is precisely what makes him compelling. There's a psychological principle at work here that few people articulate clearly. Value that is obvious does not need to announce itself. Think about the most powerful figures in any room. They rarely speak the most. They don't rush to dominate conversations. Their presence alone alters the atmosphere. When they do speak, people listen, not because of volume, but because of weight. The same principle applies here. An older man who is grounded in himself doesn't compete with younger men on energy, trends, or performance. He operates from depth. Younger women are extremely sensitive to emotional subtext. They may not consciously analyze it, but they feel it. They feel when a man is trying to impress them. They feel when he is anxious about being liked. And they also feel when a man is unbothered by the outcome. That unbothered energy doesn't mean he doesn't care. It means his sense of self is not dependent on the interaction. And paradoxically, that independence makes him more desirable. What's happening beneath the surface is a shift in power dynamics. When a man stops seeking approval, he reclaims psychological authority. He is no longer negotiating his worth. He's offering presence, not pleading for acceptance. This changes how he is perceived. Younger women often interpret this as confidence, but it's deeper than that. It's coherence. His inner world matches his outer behavior. There's no desperation leaking through the cracks. This self-possession also shows up in how he handles attention. When interest is shown, he doesn't inflate. When interest is withheld, he doesn't deflate. His emotional temperature remains steady. That steadiness creates safety. And safety, contrary to popular belief, is not boring. Safety is what allows desire to deepen. Because it removes chaos, it removes the unpredictability that exhausts people over time. Another critical aspect of not trying to impress is discernment. An older man who is truly self-possessed is not universally agreeable. He doesn't mold himself to fit every situation. He has preferences. He has limits. He knows what resonates with him and what doesn't. This selective engagement communicates self-respect, and self-respect is contagious. People instinctively rise or reveal themselves in its presence. Younger women, especially those who have been placed on a pedestal or treated as a prize, often find this refreshing. They are not being chased, but they are being seen. They are not being evaluated, but they are being engaged. The interaction feels human rather than transactional. That authenticity is rare in a world full of performative behavior. Here's the uncomfortable truth many men resist. Trying to impress is rooted in fear. Fear of not being enough. Fear of rejection. When a man outgrows that fear, not by suppressing it but by understanding it, something shifts fundamentally. He no longer approaches interactions to extract validation. He approaches them to experience connection, and that shift is palpable. This is why self-possession cannot be faked. Techniques fail because the body communicates truth faster than words. A man can say all the right things and still be read as insecure if his internal state doesn't align. Younger women may not articulate this, but they respond to it instantly. They lean in when they feel grounded energy. They pull back when they sense performance. So the real work here is internal. It's learning to sit with yourself without distraction. It's developing a sense of worth that isn't dependent on external reactions. It's becoming so comfortable in your own presence that you no longer need to decorate it. That comfort becomes the foundation for everything else: emotional steadiness, purpose, boundaries. Because without it, those qualities collapse into strategies. When an older man embodies self-possession, he stops chasing moments and starts creating atmosphere. He doesn't try to be impressive, he becomes impactful. And impact lingers far longer than attraction ever could. If there is one thing to leave you with, It's this the moment you stop asking how to be noticed. You start becoming impossible to ignore. Now, once a man is no longer trying to impress, something else becomes visible almost immediately: how he handles pressure. This is where attraction either deepens or quietly disappears, because emotional steadiness is not something you can perform for a few minutes. It reveals itself over time, especially when things don't go your way. Most people believe attraction is created in moments of excitement. In reality, it is sustained in moments of discomfort. How a man reacts when he's challenged, misunderstood, delayed, or denied tells you far more about his inner strength than how charming he is when everything is going smoothly. Younger women, whether consciously or not, are constantly reading this. They are watching what happens when the emotional temperature rises. Emotional mastery does not mean emotional suppression. This distinction is crucial. Suppression is avoidance. Mastery is awareness. A man who has mastered his emotional world feels his emotions fully, but he does not become governed by them. He experiences irritation without becoming aggressive. He experiences disappointment without becoming resentful. He experiences desire without losing self-control. That regulation sends a powerful signal: this man is safe to be around, not because he is passive, but because he is contained. Think about how rare that actually is. Many men confuse emotional expression with emotional dominance. They raise their voice to feel powerful. They argue to feel in control. They withdraw to punish. These are all signs of emotional fragility, not strength. And younger women have often encountered this pattern repeatedly. It creates instability. It creates anxiety. Over time, it erodes attraction, even if it initially feels intense. An older man who has learned to pause before responding changes the entire dynamic. When something triggers him and he doesn't immediately react, it creates space. In that space, tension dissolves instead of escalating. His calm becomes contagious. Not because he is trying to manage the other person's emotions, but because he is managing his own. This is deeply grounding for a younger woman. It removes the burden of emotional caretaking. She doesn't have to walk on eggshells. She doesn't have to regulate him. She can simply be herself. That freedom is profoundly attractive because it is rare. There is also a quiet authority that comes with emotional steadiness. A man who remains composed under pressure doesn't need to assert dominance. His composure speaks for him. When he disagrees, he does so without contempt. When he sets boundaries, he does so without hostility. His confidence is not reactive, it is rooted. And rooted confidence feels different. It doesn't spike and crash, it holds. Psychologically, this signals maturity, not the kind measured by age, but by integration. Integration means that different parts of the self, emotion, thought, impulse, are working together rather than fighting each other. Younger women often find this incredibly attractive because it feels coherent. There's no emotional whiplash, no sudden shifts in tone, no unpredictability that forces hypervigilance. Another important aspect of emotional mastery is consistency. Many men are calm when they feel in control and volatile when they don't. That inconsistency is destabilizing. An emotionally steady man, on the other hand, is consistent across situations. His mood doesn't depend on being admired. His self-worth doesn't rise and fall with attention. This reliability creates trust faster than grand gestures ever could. Trust is the quiet foundation of attraction. Without it, desire becomes anxious. With it, desire deepens. Younger women often interpret this trust as feeling at ease or safe. But what they are really responding to is emotional predictability, not boredom. Predictability of character. Knowing that this man will not become someone else when things get difficult. This also shows up in how an older man handles disagreement. He doesn't need to win every argument. He listens without becoming defensive. He can acknowledge another perspective without abandoning his own. That balance communicates self-respect. He is not threatened by difference. He is not shattered by challenge. That steadiness is deeply attractive because it suggests a strong internal center. There's a philosophical layer to this as well. Emotional mastery is a form of self-leadership. A man who can lead himself emotionally can be trusted in other areas of life. He is not ruled by impulse. He is not enslaved by ego. He understands that emotions are information, not commands. This understanding changes how he moves through the world. Younger women are drawn to men who feel internally ordered. Chaos is exciting in the short term, but order is sustaining. Over time, the nervous system seeks stability. It seeks rhythm. It seeks someone whose presence lowers stress rather than increases it. An emotionally steady man does exactly that. His presence regulates the environment, not through control, but through coherence. It's also worth noting that emotional mastery allows a man to handle attraction itself with grace. When interest is reciprocated, he doesn't become intoxicated. When interest fades, he doesn't become bitter. He remains grounded. That non-attachment doesn't kill desire, it intensifies it, because desire thrives in the presence of freedom, not emotional pressure. This is where many men get it wrong. They believe intensity equals passion, but unmanaged intensity quickly turns into instability. Emotional mastery transforms intensity into depth. It allows desire to exist without consuming the self. That balance is rare, and rarity always amplifies value. The deeper truth here is that emotional steadiness is not something you practice on other people. It is something you cultivate within yourself, often in solitude. It comes from sitting with discomfort rather than escaping it, from reflecting instead of reacting, from taking responsibility for your inner world instead of outsourcing it. When an older man has done this work, it shows, not in dramatic ways, but in subtle ones. In his time, in his timing, in his ability to remain present even when conversations become uncomfortable. Younger women feel this immediately. They may not have language for it, but they trust it, and trust, once established, opens the door to deeper connection. If there is one reflection to leave you with, it is this: the man who can stay calm when the moment is intense is the man who is remembered long after the moment has passed. Once emotional steadiness is established, something else begins to stand out with unmistakable clarity: direction. Not ambition in the loud, performative sense, but a quiet sense of purpose that organizes a man's life from the inside out. This is where attraction stops being situational and starts becoming structural. Because a man who knows where he is going creates gravity. People don't just notice him, they orient around him. Purpose is often misunderstood. Many assume it means career success, money, or public recognition. Those can be byproducts, but they are not the essence. Purpose is alignment. It is waking up with a reason that does not depend on external validation. It is having a sense of contribution that gives shape to your days and discipline to your choices. When an older man lives this way, it is felt immediately. His time has weight. His energy is directed. His presence is intentional. Younger women are not drawn to money as much as they are drawn to momentum. Momentum signals life force. It says this man is engaged with something larger than immediate gratification. He is not drifting. He is not waiting to be entertained. He is building, refining, or mastering something that matters to him. That internal engagement makes him compelling because it suggests depth rather than dependency. There is a subtle but critical distinction here. A purpose-driven man does not use his work or mission to impress others. He doesn't talk about it excessively. He doesn't need applause to continue. His commitment exists even in obscurity. That quiet dedication communicates integrity. It tells others that his values are not situational. And consistency of values is profoundly attractive because it creates predictability of character. This sense of purpose also restructures how he relates to women. He does not center his life around attraction. He does not rearrange his priorities to gain approval. Instead, he invites connection into an already meaningful life. That invitation carries psychological weight because it is selective. It implies choice rather than need. And being chosen by someone who has options and direction feels very different from being pursued by someone who is empty without you. Younger women often describe this as feeling secure or grounded around such men. What they are responding to is the absence of chaos. A purpose-driven man does not seek entertainment to escape himself. He is at home in his own life. That self-sufficiency creates space for genuine connection rather than emotional entanglement. There is also a philosophical dimension to purpose that goes deeper than productivity. Purpose provides a man with a moral compass. It clarifies what he says yes to and, more importantly, what he says no to. This discernment shows up in small ways. He is not constantly available. He respects his own time. He structures his days with intention. These boundaries are not rigid, they are respectful, and respect for one's own life teaches others how to treat you. Younger women notice this immediately, not as restriction, but as stability. A man who is everywhere and nowhere feels unreliable. A man who is anchored feels trustworthy. Purpose anchors a man internally, and that internal anchor stabilizes his external relationships. Another important aspect is that purpose gives a man resilience. When life becomes difficult, he does not collapse into resentment or self-pity. He adjusts, learns, and continues. His identity is not solely tied to being desired or admired. This emotional independence is deeply attractive because it removes pressure from the relationship. He is not using connection as a source of identity. He is sharing it as an experience. This is especially significant for younger women who are still forming their own sense of direction. Being around a man who is grounded in his purpose can be inspiring rather than consuming. He does not compete with her growth. He models what commitment to self looks like. That modeling often creates admiration that naturally evolves into attraction. It's also worth addressing the myth that purpose makes a man emotionally unavailable. In reality, it does the opposite. Purpose organizes emotional energy rather than suppressing it. A man with direction can be deeply present because he is not scattered. He listens fully because his mind is not constantly chasing the next distraction. He engages authentically because his life is not dependent on the outcome of any single interaction. This presence is magnetic. It feels rare in a world saturated with distraction. Younger women are acutely aware of how fragmented attention has become. When a man can offer focused presence without losing himself, it stands out. It feels respectful. It feels meaningful. There is also an unspoken maturity that comes with long-term commitment to something larger than oneself. It teaches patience. It teaches humility. It teaches delayed gratification. These qualities subtly shape how a man approaches intimacy. He is not rushed. He is not frantic. He understands that depth takes time. That understanding changes the pace of connection, and that slower pace often allows attraction to deepen rather than burn out. A purpose-driven man also does not confuse business with meaning. He chooses quality over quantity. This applies to his work, his friendships, and his relationships. Younger women often feel this difference immediately. The interaction does not feel transactional, it feels intentional, and intentionality creates significance. At a deeper level, purpose gives a man a narrative, not a story he tells to impress, but a story he lives. Humans are drawn to narrative coherence. We want to feel that the people we engage with have a past, a present, and a direction. When a man's life has narrative continuity, it creates psychological attraction because it feels complete rather than fragmented. This is why younger women are often drawn to older men who have lived with intention, not because of age itself, but because time, when used well, creates integration. It aligns experience with values, and that alignment is felt as depth. Ultimately, purpose is not about achievement. It is about orientation. It answers the question, what is organizing your life when no one is watching? When an older man can answer that through how he lives rather than what he says, attraction becomes almost inevitable. The reflection to leave you with is this: when your life has direction, you stop chasing attention, and attention starts finding you. Once a man has developed self-possession, emotional steadiness, and a sense of purpose, something very important begins to emerge naturally: boundaries. Not rigid rules, not ultimatums, but a quiet, unmistakable line that says, "This is who I am, and this is how I allow myself to be treated." This is where attraction becomes deeply psychological, because boundaries are not about controlling others, they are about revealing self-respect. Most people misunderstand boundaries. They think boundaries are aggressive. They think they push people away. In reality, the opposite is true. Healthy boundaries filter out what cannot meet you and amplify what can. And for younger women, encountering a man who has clear boundaries without hostility is both unfamiliar and deeply compelling. An older man who respects himself does not negotiate his values in moments of desire. He does not abandon his standards to avoid discomfort. He does not stay in situations that quietly erode his dignity just to feel chosen. And this is critical, because the ability to walk away calmly is one of the strongest signals of inner strength a man can send. Walking away does not mean withdrawing emotionally or punishing someone with silence. It means recognizing misalignment and responding with clarity. No drama, no lectures, no emotional outbursts, just a steady refusal to participate in what does not honor him. That composure communicates something powerful. I value myself enough to choose alignment over attachment. Younger women are extremely sensitive to this. Many have experienced men who tolerate disrespect out of fear of losing connection. Others have experienced men who enforce boundaries through anger or control. Both create instability. A man who can hold a boundary without emotional volatility creates something very different. He creates respect. Respect is the foundation of lasting attraction. Desire without respect becomes chaotic. Respect without desire becomes flat. Boundaries are what allow both to coexist. They create a container in which connection can deepen rather than unravel. There is also a psychological recalibration that happens when a man demonstrates that he will not overextend himself for approval. It interrupts familiar patterns. When a man does not chase after inconsistency, it forces reflection, not because he is trying to teach a lesson, but because his behavior introduces a different standard of interaction. This is where many men get uncomfortable. They worry that having boundaries will make them seem cold or unapproachable. In reality, it does the opposite. Boundaries make warmth credible. When a man chooses connection rather than clinging to it, his presence feels intentional rather than needy. Younger women feel this difference immediately. Self-respect also shows up in how an older man handles rejection or misalignment. He does not personalize it. He does not spiral into self-doubt or resentment. He understands that compatibility is not universal. That understanding allows him to disengage with grace. And grace under disappointment is deeply attractive because it signals emotional maturity. There is a philosophical depth here that is worth pausing on. A man who can walk away peacefully understands that his worth is intrinsic, not negotiated through another person's behavior. He does not outsource his identity to validation. This internal solidity changes everything. It affects how he speaks, how he listens, how he touches, and how he leaves. Younger women often feel this as a quiet intensity, not pressure, not control, but presence with standards. It feels rare because it is rare. Many people talk about boundaries, but few live them consistently, especially when desire is involved. Another important aspect of self-respect is selectivity. A man with boundaries does not make everyone feel special. He is not dismissive, but he is discerning. His attention has weight because it is not freely given. That selectivity is not manipulation, it is alignment. And alignment creates safety because expectations are clear. Boundaries also protect emotional intimacy. Without them, relationships become enmeshed, roles blur, resentment builds. A man who maintains his boundaries protects the connection from becoming corrosive. Younger women may not articulate this consciously, but they feel the stability it creates. It's also important to understand that boundaries are not static. They are responsive. They require self-awareness. An older man who has done the inner work can distinguish between discomfort that leads to growth and discomfort that signals misalignment. That discernment prevents self-betrayal. And self-betrayal is the fastest way to lose both self-respect and attraction. When a man respects his own limits, he models how others should engage with him. He doesn't demand respect. He demonstrates it. And demonstration is always more powerful than declaration. Younger women observe this not through grand gestures, but through consistency, through what he allows, through what he declines, through how he exits situations that no longer serve him. This also reframes power in relationships. Power is not dominance. Power is choice. The man who can choose to stay or leave without fear holds psychological authority, not because he is threatening to leave, but because he is not trapped. That freedom is deeply attractive because it suggests autonomy rather than dependency. At a deeper level, boundaries reflect a man's relationship with himself. A man who cannot say no to others is often a man who cannot say no to his own impulses. When a man develops the discipline to honor his values consistently, his presence changes. It becomes grounded, predictable, trustworthy. Younger women often feel calmer around such men, not because there is less desire, but because desire is not entangled with anxiety. The connection does not feel fragile. It feels chosen. And being chosen by someone who chooses himself first carries profound psychological weight. This is where everything comes together. Self-possession allows a man to stand on his own. Emotional mastery allows him to stay steady under pressure. Purpose gives his life direction. Boundaries protect all three. Without boundaries, these qualities collapse under the weight of attachment. With boundaries, they become embodied. The truth is, attraction does not come from how much you tolerate. It comes from what you honor. And the man who honors himself teaches the world how to treat him without ever having to say a word. So the reflection to leave you with is this: when you stop fearing loss and start honoring alignment, you don't just become more attractive, you become unshakable.